upon the rocky shores and watch the tall ships come. For 14,000 years I've been the first Australian. I came upon the freezing ship, bound down by iron chains. I fought the land, endured the lash, and waited for the rains. I'm a settler, I'm a farmer's wife, I'm a dry and barren land. I'm a convict, then a free man. I'm a king of everyone. We are one, but we are many, and from all the lands on earth we come. We share our dream and sing with one voice. I am, you are, we are Australia. I'm a teller of the stories, I'm a singer of the stars. I am Melbourne, Namatjira, and I paint the ghostly guns. I am Clancy on his horse, I'm Nick Kelly on the run. I'm the one who lost Matilda. We are Australian. Everyone! We are one, but we are many, and from all the lands on earth we come. We share our dream and sing with one voice. I am, you are, we are Australia. Last time, everyone. We are one, but we are many, and from all the lands on earth we come. That's it. We share our dream and sing with one voice. I am, you are, we are Australia. I am, you are, we are Australia. Thank you. For Australia!
Hey folks, welcome back to Indaba Africa. This is Chris once again. Well, hey folks, welcome back to Chris Wyatt Africa. Talk about screwing stuff up. Don't you just love Facebook? It advances when you tell it not to. Busy not getting choked up there. Welcome to the program. Welcome back to Chris Wyatt Africa. This is Chris live in central Pennsylvania. Feliz Navidad, Frohe Weihnachten. What is it? Kerstfeest in South Africa, and Merry Christmas to those around the world. Tonight, very special guest. Well, I should say tonight, it's tomorrow. You know, these guys called in from the future. It was tomorrow in Australia when they called me. It's now today. Welcome to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Let me put my headset in so I don't get some reverb here. Get too busy listening to the beautiful performance. That was Paul Kaspar and Bradely Marshall in Melbourne on the 20th of November this year. And can't hear myself. There we go. That was them this year as they performed at the Worldwide Rally for Freedom and Democracy that took place. Okay, there we go. Just making sure we got everything. All right, so that was on the 20th of November. Unbelievable, inspiring. We've played that video that's on Paul's webpage several times now, and people just like choking up, really emotional. But then these two guys wrote a song called The Rise, and the lyrics are just amazing, I'll tell you. So let me welcome my guests in the program right now. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Bradely Marshall and Paul Kaspar from left to right there on the screen. Gents, how's it going?
Hey, Chris. It's great. Thank you for having us on.
Well, it's a real pleasure to have you guys on. Listen, we were talking briefly before the program, and I said that one of the interesting things is that as many people begin to fight for liberty and freedom around the world, musical performers, songwriters, and artists are actually making an impact now here in the U.S. Of course, he's Canadian, for those who don't know it, but Tom MacDonald, who's pretty well known for his facial tattoos, but also for his rap music. Tom MacDonald's been making lots of songs like Snowflakes and America and many others, trying to call it the hypocrisy of many things happening around the world. Also, there's this young kid here in the States now named Samson who's been making some really good rap songs. It's a white kid from Georgia about the political hypocrisy. You guys wrote this song about the rise, and it's unbelievable. I'm telling you, I think a lot of the world hadn't seen this, but because one of my viewers is from Melbourne and was at the rally, I heard Bradely singing at that, and I was like, it was unbelievable. Now, he wasn't singing Rise. He was, I think you sang the Seeker song.
I sang the Seekers one.
Yeah,
We Are Australian.
Yeah, you sang that, and I'm like, no way. And then, so I went and found your page, your Facebook page, and it said The Rise, which I hadn't heard. And I listened to that, and honestly, I was almost in tears listening to it. Really moving, guys. So we're going to ask you a lot about your careers, what you're doing. I mean, I've looked at your Facebook pages and your social media presence. But let's talk about this song. Now, Melbourne is in Victoria, state of Victoria in Australia. Of course, it's the largest town in Australia, about a little over 5 million in the metropolitan area. It's about 19% of Australia's total population. There have been some massive rallies there going on for some time now. It has been an epicenter of rallies. Now, this despite the fact that early rallies, police would grab and snatch people and lock them up for all kinds of crazy things. But how did you guys get involved in going to these rallies, and where did the rise come from? Whoever wants to start and tell us about where the rise came from.
Yeah, so I think we got involved in the rallies. I mean, we felt strongly about, particularly the bill that was set to be passed. So we started attending those rallies anyway. We saw a few other musicians, and I'd written the song maybe 2 weeks prior. Well, the skeleton of it, the lyrics as well. And then we said, you know what? I mean, I wrote it about, I guess, a lot of things that are going on at the moment. And then we sat down with Brad, and we put all the pieces together and made it what it was. And then I started going to Parliament, and it was a far smaller crowd than the weekend rallies. And I think that kind of got us. I think that kind of got us seen. It gave us an opportunity to actually perform, and then from there it just kind of got bigger and bigger. And then eventually we performed on the Saturday.
Yeah, it's escalating so quickly because it was only a week really. Like Paul called me on a Monday, and he said to me, "Oh, Brad, can you come down? I'm going to perform Rise. Can you come down and bring your keyboard?" And I said, "Oh man, teaching, right?" And so I sent him a backing track, and then next thing I see on Facebook is Paul is performing at Parliament on the steps, and he just looks like a real champion, rebellion, like the face of the resistance. I'm like, oh, that's just awesome. I'm like, oh, I'd have to, I couldn't wait to come down myself and perform. So the next day, Paul asked me, can you come down and perform again? I'm like, yeah, man, sure. So he hired a generator, and I brought my keyboard, and he had his speaker there, because they were using just like a really cheap speaker system, and you couldn't really hear it well. So they were grateful for us as well, because Paul brought in his huge speaker system, generator, keyboard, and then you could really hear them then. But it was just a week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we actually came back every night, and Paul was up there till like 4 a.m. in the morning on time, I think.
Yeah, the first night.
He did he was dancing with Catherine Cummings, who is an MP here. He's an MP. Yeah, so it was just amazing. It was just 1 week. And then at the end of that week, we were talking in the car, just like Friday night, going there, we'll just do a small performance because we're going to perform on Saturday. We just do a small one, we want to conserve ourselves because there could be a lot of people showing up. There was 200,000 or something the previous week. So we think it's going to be a small performance, and then the whole steps of Parliament is just covered in people, and phones are everywhere. And people in Sydney and people in New York are contacting me saying, "Oh, I thought I was just going to watch it for a few minutes, and I couldn't stop watching. Thank you guys for your support, and for being so brave as to perform on the steps and all that." But so the next day, and then was the massive protest, half a million, they say, at Flagstaff, and that's the one you heard just then. But it's been escalating so quickly.
No, it's absolutely amazing.
But really, we're doing it because we love it. It's not even just about music. It's about uplifting people. It's the energy when we get there before it's so bitter. You know, you can really tell there's like this anger and, you know, frustration. They should be angry, right? But we don't want that to escalate into violence. That's the last thing we want, right? We just want to promote music and peace and unity in this time of such divide, right? So that's why I brought my keyboard, and we're both singing, and it just when we leave, the energy is just optimistic, you know.
Well, I have to say that from what I've seen of the rallies, following these now for some time in Australia, particularly in Melbourne, is the only violence I've seen. Now, that's not to say it's the only violence because I'm not present, but the only violence I've ever seen has been perpetuated by law enforcement, not by protesters. People have been peaceful. This isn't your Antifa burn, loot, murder crowd that's showing up. It's people with families, with kids who are angry about different things. And first off, for the audience, just to explain some things, Paul was very kind there earlier. He appreciates the fact that you can get censored for saying the wrong thing. I mean, these guys are living in the Australian penal colony, so they know what it's like to be oppressed. But so Paul a little while ago said, he said, you know, they were singing about things. And so that's kind of where I left it. Thank you for that, Paul. So we didn't get into some of the topics that kind of inspired this. But you guys, how do you know each other? Let's go with that. I mean, let's talk about that. I mean, how do you guys like? Have you known each other a long time? You high school mates, or did you bump into each other out, you know, trying to make money on the side of the street? What's going on?
No, I just so we joined. I met him through another friend. They went to school together. It was just kind of word of mouth thing. We were looking for musicians, and we just kind of got together. There was like a Melbourne rock school, which Brad didn't attend, but his friend did, and then I met him through there. So it's kind of a word of mouth thing. Yeah,
we had a mutual friend, and he said to me, "Oh, we're looking for a keyboard player. Can you come down one night?" So I must have been about 16 or 17, and that's where I met Paul, and we were rehearsing at like this place. It wasn't the Hydro, it was like in Clayton somewhere. So like a really small venue, and the band was just really cool, and I vibed with it. We're performing in the Esplanade Hotel. You guys probably don't know, but like pretty good venues in Melbourne, and it just came from there, and we've been performing ever since.
Well, you know, I do like to deal in facts, and Red Robin, who's a loyal viewer of this program, is in Melbourne, and Red Robin says hello from Melbourne. These guys, of course, are in Melbourne, but not Melbourne, Florida, Americans. That's Melbourne, Australia. But no, he corrected me and said that Sydney is the largest town in Australia, and he's correct. I mean, it's got Melbourne beaten by at least 150,000 out of 5+ million. So okay, so we've corrected that anyway. So no fake news here. But so now, Brad, you've got you teach people music, and you produce music and some other things. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do there, your business? Because you said you guys met like maybe you were 16. I'm like, what are you, like 19 now, the two of you guys? What's going on?
Oh, thank you. No, we're actually both 25.
25, yeah. Getting old.
Getting old, yeah.
Oh, be quiet. Stop right there. Ladies and gentlemen, this terminates the interview at this stage. No, but Brad, tell us a little bit about, well, it's your business, right? So tell us about your business a little bit.
I started teaching when I was in year 12. Just during, I got a lot of people reaching out. Can you teach my daughter, my son? Like they saw me performing and whatnot. I've been teaching since I was year 12, and unfortunately, I had to stop teaching. Because of the mandates and the jabs. I was teaching at 2 primary schools and a high school. And I regret leaving. I don't regret leaving because I value my bodily integrity and the ability to choose. But I had to force myself out of that. And basically now I'm starting my own business, teaching over Zoom and whatnot. And I also produce. I've got a friend who used to be my guitar teacher, and we formed our own company. It's only still small scale, but we're looking to grow it. It's called Alera Music Productions, and it started off with just a lot of students at, like, they call it the VCA, so just like the Victorian College of the Arts. They write movies, right, and they need backing tracks. So we just started giving them backing tracks or for commercials, and a lot of artists are reaching out to us and asking to produce their tracks and whatnot. So that's what I do. I teach, I produce. I used to always perform. Now we're just performing in Parliament, and we'll be performing this Sunday, Christmas carols. Apart from that, just a love for music and a love for sharing music in the form of teaching and gigs.
Now, how good are you producing, Paul? Brad? Because I've discovered that I can really sing as long as there's an auto tuner involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you make me a star? Yes.
Auto-tune's a real controversial thing. Actually, I don't know. I actually like the sound of auto-tune. Like I heard T-Pain singing, and I'm like, wow, he can really sing. But yeah, the sound of auto-tune, I don't mind. But yeah, I can produce pretty well. But my colleague who I'm working with, he produces insanely well.
So, Paul, what about yourself? Has there been impact from the Rona hysteria that's affected you, or were you in business? Were you doing something yourself? You're studying, teaching, working. What are you up to when this all hit, and what are you doing these days other than singing on the steps of the state parliament?
Yeah, I was a barber by trade.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. Hence why I was so interested in the beard. Very nice. Yeah, so I was a barber and just taking some time off now, I guess, to work on the song and perform. So I wasn't actually an apprentice. So taking a little break now. I'll probably be going back soon. But yeah, definitely affected. I mean, all of this just kind of turned everything upside down here. So yeah, it's been quite difficult.
So
he's just like Frankie Valli in that sense, you know.
Yeah,
Frankie Valli was also a barber and become a singer. Yeah.
Really?
He wasn't as short as I think we were the same height.
Yeah, I wasn't going to mention that. I'm kind of tall, so I was going to give you a break on that one, Paul. But since you're a barber, my audience has been haranguing me for ages, and I went and ordered these anyway. But you like the beard, but I do have these Viking beads to put in my beard. I haven't got around to that yet.
Yeah?
Yeah, so maybe you could help me
Very
figure that out. I got a whole container of them here. So anyway, but my audience keeps asking to put them in. But the problem is I actually interview politicians and celebrities, and also I just ran for political office recently and won. It's kind of tough to be taken seriously if you walk around with Viking beads in, unless you're trying to maraud. And, that's not really what I'm doing, not marauding. So anyway.
Congratulations, you won, huh?
Well, I did. Yeah, there was a position that is a rather important position, especially after we saw what happened here in the USA in 2020. There's in each jurisdiction, there's something known as a judge of elections. Judge of elections is responsible for overseeing the election site, making sure that things run smoothly, appropriately. There's nothing untoward going on. If someone comes up and they're not on the voter rolls, you work a provisional ballot for them, and you make sure that's all sorted. And you also make sure there's no hanky-panky going on. And then also, we have a strange, I guess, I don't know how it is in Australia, but in Africa, in most places, you can't campaign. Like in South Africa, you can't campaign for like 3 days before the election or something like that. Whereas in America, in most states, each state does differently, but most states you can campaign on election day. And you just have to be a certain distance from a polling station. Well, one of the jobs of the judge of elections is to make sure that people aren't violating the distance and they're not misbehaving and causing trouble or any disputes. So I'm the guy that will be, when I take the oath of office for it, I'm the guy that will be calling the sheriff or the local cops if someone misbehaves and making sure it goes smoothly. But there was no one on the ballot, so I decided to do a writing campaign. I went around to my neighbors in my neighborhood the night before 2 nights before the election, and asked people who I knew if they'd be interested in voting for me. And then on election day, because I was teaching in the morning, after I taught for 2 hours through Zoom, after I taught for 2 hours, then I went to the polling station and handed out a postcard I made with my name on it and made my pitch to people. And oddly enough, I mean, a judge of elections has nothing to do with certain things, but a lady asked me, can I ask you some questions? I'm like, sure, absolutely. What's your view on abortion? I was like, okay, I was kind of caught off guard. I wasn't expecting, to be asked a question about abortion. But anyway, so it went well, and I got 3 times the number of votes the next candidate. So it went pretty well. But that's that office. Yeah, so I'm also considering running for statewide office at the legislature because I'm just tired of all this nonsense. I spent 3.5 decades in uniform, 23 years overseas, fighting for freedom and democracy, to come home and find my democracy being stolen right from under my feet, being harassed and censored by people just for stating facts. It's really frustrating. Anyway, but that's not what it's about. It's not about me. It's about talking about you guys. So let's get back to that story. That's much more interesting. Now, the Seekers song. A lot of people some people outside Australia know the song. We Are One, We Are Australian. But obviously Australians know this song. It's been there for decades. The Seekers are famous. They're all still alive, late 70s, early 80s. I don't know the last time they performed, but I've heard them perform it many times in the past. I've heard others perform it. I got to tell you guys, with that crowd there, you guys performing, it's just chilling. It really is. In that moment when you sang that on November 20th, what were the thoughts going through your heads? I mean, you had to be stoked. I've been in front of crowds of that size before, and just the crowd, the energy of just people there, whether it's a good or bad spirit, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of energy there one way or another, and that kind of gets you in a certain mindset. But you had to be in a mindset. Then you're up on that stage, you're performing. Tell us about that. Let's start with Brad. Tell us, what was that like for you guys?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for your service, and how brave for you, not just to, fight for your country, but to continue fighting when you come home against what's happening. So yeah, thank you for your service. So,
thank you.
Yeah. When I was there in Flagstaff, I was saying to Paul, like the grass was just like we were there, and then there's just all grass. And I was saying to him, imagine in the next hour, there's going to be thousands of people, and you won't be able to see any grass at all. You'll just be seeing heads. And sure enough, the hour came, and then there's this wave of people just washing in, and it's just surreal. Like it literally felt like I don't know how big it compares to like Woodstock, but it felt like a Woodstock kind of event, and the energy was just beautiful. Like it's just like a wave of optimism, and this is like the type of optimism you feel before all of the lockdowns, like this is how life used to be like. There's a photo of me, like in the first interview we did together, they showed a photo of me actually, they think I'm sleeping. I wasn't sleeping. What I was doing was actually meditating, not because I was so overwhelmed by it all, but just because I wanted to close my eyes and think, this is where I am. We're about to perform in front of 500,000 people, and I just want to take it all in with my eyes closed, just the sound, and feel myself on the earth and whatever. I know it sounds very spiritual. I'm still finding out what my spiritual beliefs are. But I just wanted to meditate there in that moment just before performing. And we performed, we shared the energy with everyone, and it was a beautiful moment.
No, it absolutely was. And, it's, I can't imagine performing. I've spoken in front of crowds, but not 500,000 before. That's a bit bigger than my largest crowd. But I've had tens of thousands, but not 500,000. But performing in front of 500,000, that'll definitely get your pucker factor going there. I mean, if you're nervous in front of crowds. Paul, about yourself, what were your thoughts when you performed that? Well, it had to be. Now he smiles. Paul's been sitting there. He kind of got like a stiff face for a minute when Brad was talking, but now he smiles. Go ahead, Paul.
I'm smiling because I had a very different experience already. And that's why when he was saying to me, I'm like, oh, no, nothing like mine. I was stressing because, I didn't really have time to feel anything, to be honest with you, because we got there and the time schedule was a little bit, I guess, all over the place, because we were again, it all happened in a week. So we weren't even sure if we were going to perform. We got a message a couple nights before from one of the organisers. They just kind of said, come down, but it was really difficult because it was through Telegram that they were trying to get in contact. So, so we just said, we'll rock up as early as we can. We got there. And unfortunately, the sound system had to be out of there as soon as possible. So we weren't even sure if we were going to perform. And I was kind of running around talking to organisers, trying to work out where we could fit in, even if we could just play Rise. And eventually we got there, but I think that was a good thing because it kind of kept me from realising what was right in front of me. I think if I had at any moment realised how many people were in front of me, I would have just passed out. So it distracted me. I mean, Brad was trying to take it in, but I was just kind of zoning out, and thank God. That was my experience, and then it just kind of happened in the blink of an eye. And by the time I knew it was over, I still haven't processed what happened. I see videos, and it doesn't feel like me. It just kind of felt like an out-of-body experience. So, but no, when you look back at it, it was absolutely incredible what we actually achieved that day. So,
no, it was absolutely amazing. And the sad news, let me bring a few comments in from the chat here. So one of the things over here, Chris, where'd it go? Chris Holmes, who is my on-the-field ground reporter there for me the last couple weeks. Thanks once again, Chris, for the great job you did there after we figured out how to get your phone turned the other way. But Chris Holmes, who's in Melbourne, said that with no mainstream media accurate reporting these gatherings, people did not even know they're happening. How sad. And there's a lot of truth to that. When the mainstream, lamestream, fake stream media are involved, they really distort things. These are, in normal times, with a city of 5 million and 500,000 people showing up from the metropolitan area is 5 million plus, and 500,000 people showing up for a demonstration, no matter what it is, if it was Greenpeace or if it was, Save the Storks or whatever it was, this would be global news. It would be all over the news, talked about. But these worldwide rallies for freedom and democracy are pretty much being suppressed and not reported on by the mainstream media, including Fox News. It's a disgrace. Now, I don't think Fox is anything better than any of the other networks here, but a lot of people seem to have faith in Fox. I lost faith in Fox when they became the super PAC, the Political Action Committee for Donald Trump when he's a candidate. They're supposed to be a neutral news organization. It was all Trump all the time. And while I voted for Trump in 2016, I didn't think that was appropriate. But ever since then, I haven't trusted them, and I was right. But Chris Holmes says, no accurate reporting. True. Sharon Westfall says, what delightful young man gives one hope for the future. Well, indeed, I'd have to echo that. And Lachlan Bird makes the point saying, well, California's population is about 40% larger than all of Australia. That's true. That is true. But it's people like to point those things out. But it's so very different experiences. Brad is like, this is wonderful. Let's take it in. I could just see Brad. I'm liking this. This is cool, man. Look what's gonna happen. And then Paul's probably like, oh man, what the? Okay. And then but it reminds me, guys, of when I was in Liberia. I was in Liberia, and President Bush, George Walker Bush, 43, came for a presidential visit, what we call POTUS, President of the United States visit. So I was there in my dress uniform, with all my ribbons and everything, obviously not a beard, short hair. And we were at the Barclay Training Center, which is a training site that I was training the Liberian Armed Forces at, and building the new army. Bush came, and he's supposed to come with the president of Liberia, and they were arriving there, and there was a Secret Service agent assigned to work with me. And this guy was like the B team. He worked for the vice president. They had so many, because they visited 7 countries and they have to leapfrog. One team goes to one country and preps and does all, they have to do all security stuff. So I had like the B or C team. This guy, so he's dressed in a suit, all smart and everything. I'm wearing my dress uniform, and thousands of people are walking by us coming into the venue. And this guy's like, where they at? Where they at? He's like bouncing around and everything. Where they at? I'm like, dude, calm down. Calm down. You got to be calm. People are watching us. And so I kind of distanced myself from him. I kind of walked off in the distance. It's like 98 degrees Fahrenheit there. So like 36 degrees Celsius. And humidity is like 90 some percent. I'm wearing a dress uniform, which is made out of, a polyester blend. And so, just trying not to sweat. And I distanced myself from this guy because he was spazzing out. So I was just thinking back to that experience and thinking about Paul and Brad on the stage here and getting kind of a similar vibe. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. From my perspective, seeing Paul, he was pretty calm. He says that he was freaking out, but the way he looked was very calm.
Yeah, I wouldn't say at the time I was freaking out. I think I was just preoccupied.
Yeah.
So as I said, if I had actually, I guess, processed what was going on and I wasn't otherwise occupied, I think I just would have passed out or had a panic attack. So that was good that I was preoccupied.
It's probably fair to say that for you, Paul, you were in the moment and you were processing what was going on, and so you couldn't really think about how big this was and the impact of it. That's probably
exactly,
fair.
yeah.
That's fair.
That's
yeah.
right.
Well, that Secret Service agent was definitely freaking out. Let me tell you, that guy was he was pacing back and forth, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So Bush comes up. The limo pulls up, and we had an outbuilding there before you get to the bleachers in the parade field where the soldiers were at. And all the local Liberians and the Americans who worked the embassy were inside because the president was going to address them, kind of a rah-rah cheer speech. Hey, it's great. Thank you for working for America. You're doing great work. Anyway, so he pops out of the limo on the right-hand side. I'm standing there, so I give him a crisp salute because he's the commander-in-chief. And he goes, Colonel, how you doing? Now, I had been warned by the Secret Service, don't talk to Bush. Don't talk to Bush. He loves to talk to soldiers. Don't talk to Bush. Well, the guy's the president of the United States, the singular most powerful, official in the world. So if he wants to talk to me, I'm going to listen. So he comes up, he starts chatting with me, and you can see the Secret Service agents around him just going through DTs like, come on, let's get it on. Come on, let's go. And he goes, hey, Colonel, can I bring the president in? And I was kind of stunned for a second. I said, sir, you can go in any moment you want. No, I'm talking about President Johnson Sirleaf, the president of Liberia. I'm like, sir, look, you're the president of the United States. You want her to come in with you? That's your prerogative. She's welcome to attend. This is her country. So he laughed, and he starts asking me about my life, and you could just see the Secret Service agents, the blood boiling, their temples bulging, the steam coming out of their ears, and finally goes inside. And if looks could kill, I would have died on that day in 2008 from Secret Service agents. It was just anyway. But so you guys did that. Now, the rise, Paul, you wrote this thing. So is there something that prompted it? We just like, we need something, or does some moment get you to sit down and put pen to paper? I mean, what motivates you to do that?
Yeah, I guess I was just kind of reflecting on everything that was going on, beyond even in Melbourne. I just sat in the room with my guitar, and I started writing lyrics, started writing, just strumming away, and it just kind of came to me. But this kind of daunting feeling came over me as well. Like, if you're going to do this, you got to kind of take it all the way. And I'm like, all right, if you're going to make the decision now if you want to do this. And I did. I think for me, it was just it started off as a form of expression for myself. I didn't expect for it to go as far as it did. I think Brad adding the cherry on top and, arranging and making it. I mean, most of the song, I guess, was mine and the main idea. And then when he came and added his flair, I guess that's when I'm like, oh, okay, this is happening now. We're gonna release this. We're gonna be a part of something. But yeah, I didn't expect it to go the way it did as quickly as it did. For me, it was just kind of a form of self-expression, and then I guess it became something else. Something more.
The first time I heard the song, we just went for a cold dip together because we need to raise our immunity. So my sister tells me you should go for cold dips because apparently they're really healthy for your immune system. It's like a shock to the system. So we just suffered together in the cold water, and then because this was like I think it was like September or something like that. I don't know. It was pretty cold still, and I go back to his house and he plays the guitar for me and he plays the song, and I'm like, that's really good. And then a week later, like he shows me a demo of it. I'm like, that's really, really good. And then he asked me questions like, oh, what do you think of the pre-chorus? What do you think of this thing? Is there any way you can work it out?
It definitely wasn't ready. Like, it was very raw. And we just kind of casually said, man, what can we do about all this? Because we felt the same about a lot of things. And Brad said, we casually saying that we should write a song. But yeah, when we had sat down together after our cold plunge, it was very, very raw. Yeah. Very, the beginnings, still at the beginning of the song.
And his lyrics are just brilliant. Like, he wrote all the lyrics.
Thank you.
Yeah, so like I didn't even know what mired meant. Like, mired eyes, like deep in the mud. Like, it just really just captures everything. And Blue Church, like I didn't know what a Blue Church meant, but that's like the mainstream media, just brilliant. So a lot of the stuff he was doing, like that line, like, if I die with pride, like that's exactly how I feel. So when I was trying to match the chords to his lyrics, I was thinking like, I really want to make this really dark and convoluted, like you're journeying through the soul. Like, if I die, like what chord resembles that? If I die, okay, I think I'll try E minor, F minor, and the F diminished, and G. Yeah, that's the feeling I want, and the resolution. Finally, if I die with pride. And before he goes back to the chorus. So it's just a testament to his lyrics. I really wanted to match the power there. Yeah.
Well, you absolutely did. And the collaboration is brilliant. The lyrics are amazing. Congratulations, Paul and Brad. Putting it together, the two of you, is absolutely brilliant. Folks, you're listening to Chris Wyatt Africa here on the Indaba Africa channel, part of the Indaba Broadcasting Network. It is 1:35 in the morning for me. It is 8:35 in South Africa, Botswana, and Namibia. And it is about 17:35. And for you civilians, that's 5:35 p.m. in Melbourne, Australia. My guests today are Bradely Marshall and Paul Kaspar, the songwriters and musicians who performed this brilliant song called Rise, as well as did this amazing performance. They've done many performances now in front of the Parliament there. Now we're talking about the state Parliament, because Canberra, of course, is the federal capital in Australia, but at the state Parliament there in Melbourne in the state of Victoria. And so we're just talking about this stuff. Guys, when it comes to lyrics, it's really interesting because artists can be pretty clever with language. And it's not just English. I speak 6 languages, and German is one of them. It was my first second language, which is an odd statement, my first second language, but it was my first second language. And when when I learned German, one of my favorite performers is a guy named Herbert Grönemeyer. And Herbert Grönemeyer sang this song, and he had a line in there. I had no idea what the verb was. I'd never heard it before because I was still learning German at the time. And he says, "Wenn du schmollst und traurig bist," which means when you frown and you're sad. I knew what traurig was, that's sad, but schmollen, that sounds like a weird verb. What is schmollen? So I had to figure out what that was, and somebody told me it means what. And there was a person who spoke German, they couldn't speak English very well, and they couldn't explain what it meant. So they just made like a frown, like, oh, okay. So I got it. My point is that when Paul puts mired in there, that's just brilliant. I mean, you can take the language and you can take it so many directions when you perform it, and lyrics can really be amazing. Some of the most motivating songs we've seen over the decades have been from artists who really, and songwriters who really know how to tease the language, particularly English, because it's so adept and so diverse. We've taken so many other things, French, Latin, all these different languages have come into our language. Really good stuff. So great job there. Lea Janssen van Rensburg, who's in South Africa, she says, "Amazing young gents, respect," and she gave you a salute. We have custom emojis on the program, so she gave you guys a salute. And then Gareth, is that the Gareth in New Zealand, or is that the Gareth in South Africa? I think it's the one in New Zealand. Says, "Could we get?" Well, I think it's the one in New Zealand because he spells quick with a K. Can we get a quick sample of some music? Well, we may get to that shortly, but let's tease a little more out from these gents before we go any further. Let's see. Sharon does have a question. Let's shift the focus a little bit now that we've introduced you gents a little bit. Sharon Westfall says, question. Initially, it seemed like, now, I don't know if it's fair to ask you guys to answer, but you're on the ground and you give us your perspective, okay? We're not going to say your authorities on this, but your perspective. Initially, it seemed like most Aussies embraced the arbitrary rules and regulations. Is that the sentiment changing now with the latest changes like enforced quarantine camps? What are you guys' thoughts on that? Did you, when you first saw lockdown come, did people just kind of like, okay, we have to do this, or did you see it differently?
Well, for me, I mean, it felt at the beginning like they were doing it for the right reasons. I wasn't particularly against lockdowns, but then I think certain politicians used it, I guess, in the wrong way. That was my take anyway, eventually. And then I think, yeah, to answer the question, I think now at this stage, a lot more people are gearing onto what's kind of really happening, that it isn't 100% about health. I mean, our healthcare workers have been incredible here. I had COVID recently, and they were really helpful. I can't say anything wrong about them. They were absolutely amazing. But unfortunately, it's become more about politics than health. And that's where the issue lies, I think, here, especially with the new bill. I think a lot of, I mean, I'm not going to name names, but a lot of politicians had... Dan Andrews. Well, glad you coughed it out. No, but I think they've used kind of this dire situation to push their own agenda, and that's been a real issue here in Victoria particularly.
No, that's a fair statement. Before Brad answers real quick, what you're saying is it seems to be the world over. Politicians have taken a very real situation with this pandemic, and they're using it to their political advantage in a very dire fashion, oftentimes violating their own nation's laws or constitutions. We see it here. For instance, in the state of Pennsylvania where I live, the governor here, Tom Wolf, I call him El Duce II there, the little fascist dictator in Harrisburg, our capital. He implemented unconstitutional rules, which he called laws, and police threatened people like they did in Australia and elsewhere, in Canada and UK. But a federal judge last year in August, over a year ago now, declared virtually everything that he put in place to be unconstitutional, both from a state constitution and from our federal constitution standpoint. Has anything happened? Nope. No sanctions, no changes. Now, most of those restrictions have been lifted because people simply stopped following them. They ignored them when they knew it was unlawful. They said, come arrest me, that sort of thing. And there was enough pushback, but there's still a lot of things that are happening. They tried to force kids in school to wear masks all day long, and that has been put aside as unconstitutional. That's been rejected. And so they're still trying to do it in another form. It's just insane. And the people that fascinate me, before Brad gets in here, that run around and accuse people who point out that, like, for instance, the Earth's climate changes all the time. Human interaction can affect it, but to think that we are the sole cause of climate change is us alone is kind of hubris. People who look at real science like that, the left will say, well, science deniers, but these people are science deniers. I mean, if you guys have seen the reaction to this latest variant, the Omicron, by the way, I'm safe from Omicron because Optimus Prime hangs out here at my house, so I won't be attacked by Omicron because of Optimus Prime.
Can anyone answer? Can you answer why? I mean, I've got a Greek background.
Yeah.
Why did we skip so many? Why did they skip so many letters?
Well, it's very simple, actually, and I should tell you this. I carried the live stream of the president of South Africa recently. He gave a speech talking about what they're doing, responding to this. And on my stream, I just put omega, which is the last letter in the Greek alphabet. Of course, you would know that. I put omega because I'm tired of all this bullshit. I want to get to the end of the alphabet and be done with Rona.
Yeah.
So I put omega. But the reason they skipped it is obvious. I mean, Xi Jinping is the president for life, the dictator of China. And you had Nu, which was next, and then you had Kai, but it looks like Chi. So, so they skipped right past it. The World Health Organization got caught on that, so they felt compelled to come out. They did a news release and said, "Oh, no, we just did this," and they just made up some lame, mealy mouth excuse. But anyway, yeah. So let me get Brad's thoughts on this, because Paul, you shared your thoughts how it started and how you felt about it, and then your perception of it now.
Well, when it started, I just went along with things. How can you form an opinion on it when it's so fresh and new and like this deadly coronavirus is everywhere? So, you don't know what to expect. So it's great to like overstep and react in a way that's like, do more than less, because you don't know what's going to happen. So, but at this point, like, I think the worst thing is the segregation. Because from what I've read, like I've got a degree of science myself, and like from what I've read, it's like from the Lancet Disease Journal, it says that the unjabbed and the jabbed both spread equally. I mean, like look at the Omicron variant. How did it actually get to Australia or around the world? Like if unjabbed can't even travel. So
exactly. Sorry to interrupt you, Brad.
The unjabbed, right?
I sorry to interrupt, but I got to interrupt. I mean, they just had 3,300 people on a Norwegian cruise line ship from New Orleans. Everybody had to be fully jabbed to get on it, including the staff, all the passengers. And they had to have a negative PCR test within 72 hours, just like getting on a flight. They go on a cruise, they come back, and they got an outbreak of Rona on the ship. Now, how does that happen from unjabbed people? There weren't any unjabbed people on the boat. So it's just, the common sense factor is completely out the window in this thing.
And the worst thing is they're blaming everything on the unjabbed. It's like it's all their fault. Like Dan Andrews says all the time that this is the what does he call it? The pandemic of the
pandemic of the unvaccinated.
Oh, you said it.
I'm quoting. It's a direct quote.
It's exactly right. No, that's a news item. That's what they've called it, and it's just it's if it wasn't so sad, it would be comical. I think part of this has to do with the fact that I don't know how the education system is in Australia, but I can tell you here in the U.S. that for the past several decades, we've really been dumbing down our education system. Let me give you a quick example. So I wasn't particularly close to my father, who passed a couple years ago, but in fact, I thought he was dead for 20 plus years. He was out of my life. And then I rediscovered him in the 90s and kind of built a relationship with him. But I was having a conversation with him one day about 15 or 20 years ago, talking about school. And he was like, I said, so because I speak all these languages. I said, did you learn language in high school? He said, yeah, I learned. I took Latin and Greek and a foreign language. And I said, wait a second, Latin and Greek and a foreign language? Aren't Latin and Greek a foreign language? No, those are classical languages. Everybody had to take those. It was mandatory all the way through high school. So when he was in high school, in public school, you had to learn Latin and Greek. That's the kind of education. He had to have science 4 years in high school. He had to have English grammar 4 years in high school. He had to have American government, had American history. And so when I went to high school, I only had to have 1 year of mathematics, 2 years of English, and I didn't have to take a single foreign language to graduate. I took Latin, and I did terribly. And I remember one word, silva, which is for forest. Anyway, but that's all I learned from Latin that year in high school. But that was for me already. And then my siblings came a couple years after me. I'm the eldest. And when I talked to them years later, I found out that they eliminated mandatory requirements that even I took. In South Africa, it's the same sort of thing. In an effort to have equality, which is not equality, it's stupidity, they have lowered the educational standards. Can you imagine this? They take the matric, and on the matric, in the subject areas, you can get 2 subjects with a score of 30% and pass to get in university. Now, how in the world is that a passing grade? Would you guys like the structural engineer that builds the bridge that you used to cross the river to be made by someone that got a 36 in their maths? I don't. I want someone that got a 96 in their math, not a 36. So I don't know what education is. If it's been same, you're closer to it, more recent graduates from that level of education than I am. But I mean, I've seen in places where education has been dumbed down, people are not as capable of critical thinking as they once were. And it really has an impact. And people just buy, between the explosion of social media and the ubiquitousness of digital media, people get bombarded with stuff all the time, and they just believe what they hear rather than think for themselves. What about for you guys? I mean, from your parents, do you see any difference in education?
Well, for my girlfriend in particular, because she's from Greece, and she came when she was 11, and one of the first things she said was, "Why aren't these houses rendered?" Because they've got all rented houses in Greece, and why is the homework so easy? Everything's so easy here. And I wasn't particularly academic throughout high school, but she basically said, Greece, in comparison to Australia, is a far poorer country. And their education is at a far higher quality. So, it really tells you something. And that was one of the things that she was surprised about when she came here. That, everything was just so simple. There was no homework. In comparison to overseas, there were far less subjects, like you were saying. That was her experience. And I've heard that from a lot of family members that come from particularly Greece. So that's definitely been their experience here.
Well, before Brad jumps in here, hang on, Brad, because he's really good at this. He does a transition well, so I got to cut in there. But now explains a lot. I was trying to figure out why George Michael looks so much like you. It's the Greek connection. I figured it out.
Yeah.
You going to sing Last Christmas for us? No,
I
actually recommended that to him this
George
Sunday.
Michael's actually Cypriot, so I'm Cypriot as well. So that's probably why.
Oh, okay. But Greek Cypriot, obviously, not Turkish.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. See, we know that distinction here at Chris Wyatt Africa anyway. But okay, so Brad, your turn, Brad. Sorry. Your mom is from the Philippines, yes?
Yeah, that's right. She was born in the Philippines, and I was born here. So I'm half Filipino. So how could I possibly be an arts, Well,
I was, Brad. Okay, I got myself off the screen. I've got to bring it back so we got the gallery look, folks. I did want to, tonight between this, my pigmentation challenged appearance here. People in South Africa, the term for someone who's mixed race is colored. It's not a derogatory term. It's actually a term of pride for people colored. And I always tell people I'm colored too. I'm pink. See that? So anyway, between this pink complexion and Brad's look there, we've definitely got, at least on Brad's side, the modern face of white supremacy. So I thought we'd share that with the audience real quick there. So, but anyway, so Brad, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but go ahead and tell us about your mom and about education.
Yeah, so just about education, it's such a huge topic. And, everything I say, it's like it could be scrutinized. But, I think you're right. The engineer that gets 30%, say, on his test or whatever, you want someone who can perform, right? If you're getting brain surgery, you don't want to have someone that's just going to do a poor job. You want someone the best, right? That's why I think, I'm for equality, but I'm more for not how do I say this? It's equality of outcome. Yeah, it's just
you want equality of
it's
opportunity.
just equality of opportunity. Exactly right, Paul. It's just
equality of outcome.
I think it's such a not offensive, but just a controversial topic. Things like affirmative action. Is that the best thing to do? Because we want to hire people who are have equality of opportunity, right? You want to hire people who are brilliant, not just because you're filling a identity group, right?
No, absolutely.
And I've got I'm totally for equality. I'm just sort of saying that's what they're promoting right now in universities, right? They're promoting and it's such a messy topic because I'd hate to have me taken out of context and say, oh, cancel this guy straight away, whatever. But I think that's what's happening, in the universities. It's becoming they're sort of allowing people to get their scores are say reduced, and that's fine. They still pass because they're trying to sort of cater for everyone equally. And it shouldn't be about that. It should be, it should be equality of opportunity. Everyone should have an equal chance to succeed. And it shouldn't be giving platters to people just because of traits, because in a sense that is sort of bias,
Yeah.
And it should be completely unbiased. That's my view, anyway.
Well, it's actually what you guys are getting at is it's the soft bigotry of low expectations is what it is. The soft bigotry of low expectations. When you, for instance, in America, we have people talk about America being systemically racist, and in tongue in cheek and sarcastically and rather sardonically, I say, yeah, you're right, it is systemically racist. For the past 5 decades, people of color are given unfair advantage to enter law school in Michigan because of the color of their skin. And now you're letting people get in and they qualify higher than someone who's actually better qualified. And then they struggle to get through the school because they weren't prepared for it, because they're allowed simply in because of the skin color. How does that help that person? How does it help society better? Your better approach is to pour resources into a place where someone may have been at some unfair disadvantage because of past policies or discrimination. So, for instance, when I went to university at 17, I filled out my financial aid paperwork. And actually, I didn't understand the paperwork. I did it properly, but when I sent it in, it came back and it has a figure at the bottom. And it has a little asterisk on there. And it said 0. And I thought that's how much financial aid I was going to get to go to university. And I'm like, how poor do you have to be to get any money here? I mean, we have no money here. I live in a farm. We have nothing. We didn't have electricity. We went to an outhouse, an outdoor privy to go to the toilet. I fetched water from sister. I'm like, how poor? And I misread the form. 0 is the amount of money that my family had to contribute to my education. In other words, whatever the maximum financial aid was, I qualified for it because I was dirt poor. So that wasn't based on my skin color. That was based on my income level. And so the state government in the state of Ohio and the federal government at the national level offered financial aid. And then I took a full student loan because I qualified for full amount, and it was guaranteed by the state, but I had to pay it back. And with that, plus working and bussing tables and cleaning toilets and stuff, I was able to go through university for my first year because I didn't have the resources. Now that's equality of opportunity, not of outcomes. I still had to qualify to go to university with my grades, and I had to perform there. And in interest of full disclosure, I didn't perform particularly well that freshman year. I too busy having a good time, and after 1 year left and joined the Army. But I came back later and fixed all that. But the point is, that was an equality of opportunity, which is what we're talking about here. Equality of outcomes is just some mystical leftist nonsense, which just brings everyone down to the lowest common denominator. Illiterate, uneducated, basically serfs who do what the political elites want them to do. And that's really where this is all headed. So yeah, pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah. And the fact that I'm like afraid to talk about this shows the kind of environment we're surrounded ourselves in, right? It's just this complete control of thought, like to the point where people are afraid to just speak their minds. Even if I'm wrong or if I'm right, doesn't matter. We should be able to talk.
Well, I think people should be entitled to their political opinion. Definitely. They're calling all the protesters far right extremists for whatever reason. That's definitely not the case. They're not far right for whatever reason. Even if you're slightly right leaning, that's your political opinion is still allowed here in Australia, as far as I'm concerned. So
that's right.
I don't understand.
Well, it's a narrative, and it's being pushed, and the problem is that it's a whole bunch of folks in collusion, guys. It's social media tech giants, it's the fake stream media, and it is the establishment in all our countries. And even people who are supposedly conservative, like Boris Johnson is the head of the Tory party in the United Kingdom. And the garbage, they have banned demonstrations in the United Kingdom. You can be detained and go to jail for rocking up at a demonstration. This is the country that gave us the Magna Carta to constrain the authority of the monarch and bring democracy back after it disappeared in Greece 1,000 years ago. But to bring modern democracy back in 1215, the Magna Carta. And Britain has banned demonstrations. What are they afraid of? What are they afraid of?
Is that just demonstration? Because I know here the demonstrations were banned through lockdowns.
That's right.
Have they banned demonstrations altogether?
They have banned demonstrations altogether. That doesn't mean they're not happening, but they can arrest anybody that's in a demonstration. And those sort of things are dangerous. When I was stationed in Uganda several years ago, we had a situation where there had been a protest against something happened in the government, and it was about 5 p.m. And people downtown in central Kampala were leaving their office buildings, walking out into the street and the retail stores and all the places they work, walking in the street, and this demonstration was happening out there. The police started beating people with truncheons and grabbing people and throwing them in the back of the vans, including people who just came out of work. There was nowhere for them to go. When I was there were several people that I met I met women and I met young people whose parents and spouses had been locked up for 5 years in prison without a charge, and they had never committed a crime, not even involved in demonstration. That's the abusive power of the state. To my knowledge, those people are still in jail over a decade later, haven't been released, never been charged with a crime. It's pretty scary. What's happening in Howard Springs ought to chill the whole world. I don't think a lot of people around the world know what's happening in Howard Springs. We saw a case of a young lady who claims that they came to her house because someone at her workplace tested positive for the Rona. She went home to self-isolate when they told her to do that. The police came to her home. They said, come with us. She said, well, I don't consent. Well, if you don't, then we're going to hit you with a $5,000 fine and throw you in the back of the van anyway and charge you with a crime. So she went voluntarily. They locked her up for 3 weeks. They tested her 3 times. She was negative each time. She lost her job. She has no employment now because they took her away and put her in the Howard Springs concentration camp. And she was negative the whole time. And when she complained about it, they threatened to sedate her with Valium because she was troublesome. And I've seen that, plus videos of people at the camp where these guys come out in their spacesuits. Well, we were just being generous. We could fine you $5,000 because we caught you stepping off your step without your mask on. And this is just a polite warning. It's all for everybody's good. You understand. We're just doing it for your benefit. This is chilling, ladies and gentlemen. And this is happening in Australia. Australia has been a dependable ally of freedom and liberty. It's been the right-hand partner of the United States in one conflict after another in international relations, time and time again. And I barely recognize Australia. You guys in your 20s haven't experienced the greatness that Australia has had in the past. It's been a truly great country that's punched above its weight for such a long time. It's very scary to see this. And we see it from there. We see it in Canada. We see it in the United Kingdom. In the United Kingdom, the neighbors that don't like their neighbors, calling the cops and saying, hey, they have more than 6 people in their house. And the cops show up without a warrant and intrude into their home and attack a spouse and then knock down an autistic child. And it's just, it's frightening. It's frightening.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like just the 200-day lockdown in Melbourne and the way they promote it on the news, it's like, yes, we're the most locked down city in the world, and they're promoting it like it's a positive thing.
Nothing to be proud of. That's
it's
quite the contrary.
It's awful.
It is pretty crazy.
I was talking to a lovely friend, Natalie, who's probably going to be watching this tonight. But she was telling me she's a teacher herself, and she was talking about the unjabbed kids. Like, imagine if you're 5 years old and you're forced to, like at the end of the day, if they can't go to school, right, because they're unjabbed, it's not their decision. It's the parents' decision, right? They're too young to form an opinion.
Right. And
yet they're going to have the brunt of all of the discrimination. Like, imagine if they do go to school. Like, I saw a few videos of, like, in America, there's some teachers saying, don't play with Sally over there because she's unjabbed. Like, they're literally promoting a form of bullying and segregation, and it's very worrying.
Well, it is. And when this all started, gents, last year, around the time I started live streaming after I left active service, I expressed concern about a number of things, which have been completely disregarded by health authorities and by political figures, especially since then. Now, I say go back and watch my streams, but that was on another channel that no longer exists. But so I don't have that backed up. But those were my longtime sticky audience viewers know I said this. I said already in March of last year, when we saw the lockdown take place in late March in South Africa, and this stuff could go on in April, I started saying, listen, my concerns about this locking people up in their homes for 3 weeks or a month and they can't go anywhere, because in the beginning, South Africa had the worst lockdown on the planet. You couldn't even leave your house. I mean, they would arrest you on the street. Wow. They criminalized 260,000 South Africans, mostly minorities, Indians, mixed race, coloreds, and whites. They targeted them and went after them, ignoring the rest of the population by and large. But they criminalized them and they were proud of it. We arrested 260,000 people who broke the law. It's not a law. It's a regulation, which, by the way, was deemed unconstitutional. So all of those court cases are up in the air. But when they were doing this stuff, I said, listen, folks, this is very disconcerting. And people are like, why? I said, well, first off, you have people who abuse their family. They abuse their spouses. They abuse their kids. Now they're going to have access to their kids and their spouse 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Never mind the fact that being cooped up with your family that long can create stress in and of itself and can deteriorate marital relations and relations between children. But what about those who commit incest and molest their daughters and sons? Now they're perpetrators. They can attack their victims any time of the day without any concern that anyone's going to report on them or come around because, and I said, and beyond that, what about the social isolation, especially for the elderly or for people who have mental health issues? We're going to see spikes in suicide rates, depression is going to soar, and people's health is going to decline. And then when they started this nonsense here in the States, I don't know how it was in Australia, but you can't go to the hospital unless you're positive. Huh? So my mother, who had stage 4 metastatic lung cancer, was getting treatments at a hospital, which for 18 months kept the cancer at bay. She was healthy. She had cancer, but it wasn't growing. And so she was doing, and she didn't feel badly. And then they said, okay, well, no, we have to keep the hospitals clear for the Rona patients. Well, the hospital was empty and she couldn't go. So now they gave her a drug that she could take at home, which was ineffective. And 90 days later, the cancer spread throughout her body, it was in her skull, and she died a few months after that. And before that happened to my mother, I said, what about people like kids who can't get screenings now because you can't go for preventive maintenance. And we saw a spike in pediatric cancer rates. We saw all kinds of other fatalities taking place in the UK, abnormally high number of deaths for medical conditions that normally people would have gotten care for, but they're being denied care. And now on top of that, you've got people who are being denied care because they're unjabbed. Speaking of the unjabbed, 1/3 of American healthcare workers aren't jabbed. They're being fired. So now none of us will be able to get health care, whether we're jabbed or not, because there's not enough healthcare workers. And they think that's a solution. It's just crazy, guys.
Yeah. No, it is crazy. Well, they were saying that that was the only leg they had to stand on at one stage, that they were going to overflood the hospitals with corona patients. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I always thought to myself, well, hold on. That's not cheap. So the amount of money that the government spent locking people in, they probably should have built more hospitals. I mean, that would have been the better solution, in my opinion. And then, I mean, subsidise nursing degrees and all that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I mean, we sent a lot of people back to their countries that were permanent residents, which, you know, probably shouldn't have happened. We should have kept them here and, you know, again, subsidised. You know, if you've come here to become, I mean, a lot of them come here just, you know, for citizenships, and they go through the process. But if you subsidise, you know, medical degrees, that for a growing population, I mean, we need hospitals anyway here. Yeah. If you ever go to the emergency room at our local hospital, it's flooded regardless, and it's been like that for years. It's like, so we need these hospitals and these healthcare workers anyway. So it's not. They've definitely put the money in the wrong places. That's for sure.
Yeah,
definitely put the money in the wrong.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I'm a small government. I'm a fiscal conservative, big time, and I believe in small government. But years ago, when the Unaffordable Care Act, as I like to call it, you know, Barack Hussein Obama called it the Affordable Care Act. I call it the Unaffordable Care Act because it's not affordable, and we've seen the impact of people's insurance rates go up 4 times what they were, things like that. And 23 million working Americans were kicked off of health insurance because of that stupid law. But anyway, my solution for it was a program that provided subsidized education for qualified applicants from anywhere in the world to come to America, to go to nursing school, to go to medical school. And the only thing out of that is they owed us a payback. Now, that payback wasn't like they had to go work in an inner city clinic. It could have been somebody that wanted to continue on and do plastic surgery, because people have accidents. They need plastic surgery. It's not just for celebrities. It could have been someone that, you know, went into sports medicine, whatever it was. It could be somebody that went into general practice, but they decided to go do the work in a place that benefits our domestic or foreign policy, you know. And so it's as simple as that. The bottom line is that we don't have enough healthcare professionals the world over to treat the world's population, so that all of us go to our primary care physician at least twice a year. Because if you do that, you're going to prevent a lot of these chronic illnesses like type 2 diabetes and hypertension that develop as a consequence of lifestyle. But we don't have enough of that. So as a small government guy, I actually advocated for a program that would pay for this medical stuff. It sounds like you've got kind of the same idea where they should be spending money in South Africa. Well, let me do this, folks. You're listening to Chris Wyatt Africa on the Indaba Africa channel here, part of the Indaba Broadcasting Network. My special guests tonight, well, this morning, are Bradely Marshall and Paul Kaspar. That's George Michael is his lookalike right there for Paul, just so you guys know. And then Brad over there is on the other side. They're my guests today. These are two songwriter musical performers from Australia. They've been performing at the Parliament there in Melbourne, the state of Victoria. Also, Paul wrote and Brad contributed to this beautiful song called Rise, which has kind of become an anthem. And I like it because it applies to Australia, but it applies to the world. And people that I've introduced the song to are like taking it up as an anthem now for, you know, I don't want to say the resistance, that's what the left does, but for awakening, I guess, you know, people awakening up to what's actually happening. But guys, if I can indulge you, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you want to perform something here real quick, maybe now's an apropos time, and then we'll chat for a little bit more, and then we'll wrap up after that. Is that okay with you guys? Are you up for that?
Look, to be honest with you, I literally just got through the Rona this week.
Then we're not going to ask you to do that. We're not going to ask you to do that. So
yeah, I'm trying to give myself a few more days. We've got a gig coming up on Sunday. So yeah, I'm not even 100. I'm not even probably 70% there yet. So I might have to politely decline unless Brad wants to do a song on his own.
No, it's
I can if you guys want, but I reckon it'll be better if you show a clip of us.
Yeah, we'll do the
performing.
clips. Well, what we'll do is we'll get you back on when you're healthy. Then maybe that'll get you on.
Yeah,
then we'll
definitely.
then we'll corner you to get you to perform something. But let me do this now. And you guys don't have to answer this question. But last year I did this, and I'm doing it again this year. On the 23rd of December, I do a Christmas program for the kids. And you see all the Christmas stuff behind me. My birthday, you probably don't know this, is Christmas Day, and so hence why. It's kind of a big deal to me. I know it's an arbitrary date. We don't know what day Christ was actually born, but they picked that date and it works for me because that's my birthday. But so I do 3 programs. I do one on the 23rd, one on the 24th for Christmas Eve, and the 25th on my birthday. And on the 24th and 25th, people call in. But on the 23rd, I have music performers and guests, primarily from South Africa, but I've also been inviting other folks in from the U.S. and elsewhere. I'd like to invite you guys to come on the program. All it is you pop on during a 3-hour program for a few minutes, usually 15-minute block. If you want to stay longer, you can. And I talk to you, and you're part of the people in the crowd. They're asking questions, your Christmas experiences, that sort of thing, if you want to. You don't have to answer that now, but I just want to extend an invitation to you now to invite you guys to come on the program on the 23rd if you're available. But we've got some top...
Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, did you just commit, or was that a thank you?
Yeah, well, I'm in.
Okay.
Why not?
Okay. So, guys, that's how you trick an artist into coming on your program.
You asked them.
You put him on a spot online. You say, "I'm not putting you on a spot, but hey, while we're here." No, but seriously,
Dan Andrews should take tips.
What's that?
Dan Andrews should watch this and take notes.
Oh, Dan Andrews, don't get me started. I'd never heard of the guy a few years ago. Now I know him all too well. All too well. We've got a guy from British Columbia. I think it's a guy. I can't tell. It looks like someone. I don't know the username here. It's got some kind of symbol, and it looks like it says Ji-un. So I assume that might be a Vancouver resident, an ethnic Chinese person. I could be wrong. Says the song is also played in Canada, your Rise song. That's pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's good.
Wow.
So that's good to see that that's happening. It's definitely been played in South Africa because I've introduced a lot of South Africans to it now, and here in America, Americans are learning about it. And guys, the universal response, nobody said, "Hey, that song sucks." Who do these guys think they are? Everyone is absolutely, well, hey, that happens. Everybody hates something, right? I mean, nobody has 100% approval on anything, but and if anything else, YouTube shows that. There's always a dislike from some hate wanker out there that dislikes a video.
Well, there's some people actually that are saying, "Oh, your lyrics are inciting violence." I don't know.
Yeah, I'll answer that because and I was kind of concerned about it. Initially, the song was called "Freedom or Die." Now, I've discussed my Greek background.
Yeah.
That directly references. So there was a slogan in the 1820s for the Greek War of Independence, and that was "Eleftheria ή θάνατος," which means freedom or death. And I mean, in the song, it's a direct translation, but that's what I was referencing when I wrote the song. And I mean, I really wanted, because we've got a massive Greek population in Melbourne. I think we're second, I think after Thessaloniki, so third. We've got the third largest Greek population in the world from memory. And that was something that I wanted to, bring across with the song. And I know a lot of Greek people in the Greek community, as soon as they hear that lyric, oh, that's awesome that you've made reference to that. So yeah, I wanted to make that clear with people as well, because that was a concern that I had that people might misunderstand. But yeah, it is directly referencing the slogan that we all learn about in Greek school, I guess. So
I'd be more concerned on the line, "We will rise to set this world on fire." But I think it's all metaphorical.
Yes.
I wasn't concerned with that. That was just a metaphor, I guess, for rebirth. Set the world on fire. Really, just wake people up, shake people up to what's going on. So,
and we don't promote violence at all. We promote peace and music.
Well, there was
only
one line. I mean, I didn't see it that way. "We will rise" is to me, it's like awaken. That's what I saw it as. That's how I inferred. We will awaken. Of course, I could see how it could be misused by people who want to misuse it. And then set the world on fire. To me, was just like, it's like, light that match, get everybody excited, sort of thing. Not insurrection. So I didn't see it that way. But the one line that I was like, I didn't pause, but I was like, this one might get him some flack. There's a line in it about street fighting or something. What is it? Street.
No.
Is it there? Maybe I missed I thought there was a line. Okay, maybe I'm mishearing it. But anyway, so yeah, but people will do that. By the way, so I should mention this now. The person is not ethnic Chinese. That person is a lady, and she's Korean. But it turns out she's Dutch Korean, and I think now people are chatting her up in the chat. So.
Wow.
Well, I mean, Dutch Korean, that's got to be pretty appealing mix of ethnicity there. So it's probably she's getting chatted up in the chat now by other people in Canada and in the Netherlands. I should warn you, Chi-Un, that Swearim DJ's in the Netherlands, so he's not for you. Anyway. But hey, Brad, if we can, we'll get you guys a little bit longer here. But so your mom, she came to Australia. Did your dad and your mom meet in the Philippines, or did they meet in Australia? What's that story about?
Question. I think like I've actually asked the question many times, and the response I get is that my dad met my mum here in Australia. And so she travelled here. And yeah, it's an interesting story, but I'm sure my mum wouldn't want me to talk about it on the.
No, that's fine. I just curious. I mean, no, it's interesting. When I think of Filipinos immigrating somewhere or going somewhere, I don't usually think of Australia. Now, maybe I'm just not well informed. I think of the States because of the historic relationship between the Philippines and the United States. We have a huge Filipino population in the United States, probably the largest outside the Philippines, I would guess. And as far as what Paul said a moment ago, you guys have like the third largest Greek. Obviously, Greece has the largest Greek population. At one time, that would have been Turkey, would have been second, but they were all kicked out, and when Ataturk took over. So I'm going to guess that maybe the U.S. has the second largest Greek, or maybe the U.K. has the second largest Greek population. I don't know if you know that, or
I think it's actually Melbourne. So it goes Athens, Thessaloniki, Melbourne.
Wow,
we're massive. Yeah, wow. It's huge. That's what they've told us anyway. But Greeks kind of like to take credit for things that they don't. they don't really have ownership of. So. Maybe they just lied to me. So, but yeah, that's what I've heard.
So let me ask this question then. Do you guys have plans to write something else? If you're thinking about that, has anything come to mind, or is there something we should be on the lookout for?
I've written a couple of songs. I'm yet to show Brad. I've got 2 or 3. I was working on today as well.
There we
go.
Yeah, I mean, like we're kind of typecast now as like the protest singers. Like I've got a lot of songs coming out that actually weren't supposed to be anything related to protest, just like love songs. And there's a song I'm releasing soon called "Love Never Dies," and I was thinking of rewriting it, and not just a love song, but like hope never dies, and making it like the hope of the nation, like everything we felt 2 years ago before all of this Rona pandemic, like all of that is still here in the protests and whatever. And it's so there's heaps of songs. We're both songwriters, and we're going to be pouring stuff out for the rest of our lives. Yeah.
Well, you notice I didn't ask if you were making any more protest songs. I just asked what you're working on, because I realize obviously that's not what you're all about. I mean, obviously you're getting attention now because of that, but clearly that's not something you'll be doing for the rest of your. Let's hope it's not something you'll be doing the rest of your lives.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, let's hope so. But you never know in the Australian penal colony what's going to come next. But no, so you guys are working on other stuff, and you are collaborating. It sounds like, and maybe doing some other future releases. Cool. All right. Well, listen. Since we I feel a little guilty trying to put Paul on the spot there. I didn't know that he looks pretty healthy. I didn't realize he was still coming out of the Rona there. So, so I feel guilty about putting him on the spot there. But anyway, no, it's no worries.
No, definitely next time. Next time.
But guys, listen, it's a real pleasure to have you on the program, and I don't want to chase you off, but I don't want to wear Paul down there, because I didn't have the bug, but I had something like influenza a few months ago. First time I was sick in 3 years, and I guess I'm becoming a lightweight, because I was like, man, I don't want to get sick ever again, because I'm really down. But I had multiple Rona tests, a very expensive test, by the way, that I had to pay for, and all negative. So I was run down with that. I can only imagine if you have the Rona how run down you must feel, because I hear a lot of people, you really get knackered from it. But thanks, Paul, for coming on. I really appreciate you guys coming on here. What I usually do with my guests is I give an opportunity to share any thoughts I'd like to share. If you guys want to talk about your music, you want to talk about the rallies in Melbourne, anything that you'd like to say, I'll give you a chance. And why don't we let Paul go first, and then we'll get Brad any last comments there, and then we'll just wrap it up unless you guys want to continue. But Paul, anything to say you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, I think I covered everything I wanted to say. I mean, we'll get there, I think, slowly but surely. I think, as you said, more people are kind of waking up to what's, that's been the most positive thing, that a lot more people are becoming more aware of what's going on politically. And I think that's important. I think in a country where it's been smooth sailing for such a long time, regardless of this situation and just future issues that may arise, I think it's important for us to keep our eyes open in what's going on politically. And I've definitely opened my eyes to it. So yeah, I really appreciate everybody who's on board with the situation, and I think as a country, it's going to unify us eventually.
Yeah, and I'll just say this, because I'm at the sort of front line of, we're both sort of faces of the revolution now. You would have expected for a lot of people to actually, I expected a lot of people to unfollow me and to start, rejecting me. And there have been about 1 to 10 people, but out of 900 to 1,000 followers that I have so far, most of them stayed. And those were the people that were following me existingly before. So it really surprises you, the media sort of present this picture that everyone can't stand the unjabbed and, they're dehumanized and scum or whatever. And it's really not that picture at all. If they're willing to, either they can't see what I'm doing, but I assume they can see what I'm doing, that means they're willing to tolerate and accept and maybe even have an open mind to the counterculture that's here. So, it's just people are afraid to speak their minds. But there is an existing counterculture, and there is hope. People are willing to accept the difference and possibly even change, and I think of it as a good thing.
Well, guys, it's interesting. I made a video which I felt was unsafe for the PooTube. I put it on Odyssey and Rumble. And that was a video in which I took screen captures of celebrities and leftist politicians in America. Last year, when Operation Warp Speed got underway, it was announced in May, but the rumors were already out in April, so I started reporting on it in April. But in May, it was announced by the Trump administration. And then within 7 months, which is record-breaking because they pulled all the safety stops out and gave them, protection against liability. In 7 months, instead of 7 to 20 years it normally takes, it came up with vaccines. And last year in August and September, while we were approaching the vaccine delivery, all these leftist politicians and celebrities, they put tweets out, they went and got interviewed. There's video clips of them all saying that don't take it, it's dangerous. Oh, it's not tested, it's unsafe, because Trump was behind it. Trump leaves office on January 23rd. Anybody that's opposed to it is just a lunatic. But all these leftists were opposed to it last year. Their hypocrisy really leaves a lot to be desired. How can they be so opposed to something, and then just because a new political leader's in, suddenly they're in favor of it? It just shows that they're just frauds.
That's a massive issue. That's a massive issue. They're looking at, as you said, a figurehead. And that's why I think they're labeling so many of the protesters as extremists.
Exactly.
They say one. I mean, you've got a group of thousands upon thousands of people. There'll be extremists at any event that big, right? There's just an array of people that come through. But they'll just take a figurehead. And there were a lot of people that were at the rallies and got up and spoke that I didn't agree with them. They were completely missing the point. They were going on about, they had other agendas. But that's the problem with a lot of people and council culture in particular now. It's like they latch onto something, and if it's any way connected to something that's positive, suddenly they just demonize it, and it's so wrong. It's so wrong. You got to look. You can't just look at something for face value. You got to look beyond, I think, and that's something that they're not doing at all.
No, not at all. You're absolutely right. People aren't doing that, and it's a real problem because the cancel culture is real, and the tech giants are censoring. That's real. And the discourse space is narrowed and closed. And like you said, they try to paint this as white supremacist and that sort of thing. Meanwhile, in America, when we have law-abiding, so there was this event yesterday or this weekend in which a bunch of guys showed up with white balaclavas on their face and carrying flags and looking kind of militaristic, marching on the mall. And the left is freaking, oh my God, look at this, what it's come to. I wasn't particularly impressed by watching that. I mean, it's supposedly people to the political right. But my response is like, I'm sorry, you're upset about this. Where were you last year when BLM was burning police stations and shooting people wearing Trump hats in the head in Milwaukee. Black 75-year-old man murdered. Where were you at when they looted and burned billions of dollars worth of property? You were nowhere to find. Or when the CNN journalist stood in front of the burning car lot, the used car lot, in which like there's a dozen cars on fire. I'm standing here in not Waukesha. Where was it at? Where Kyle Rittenhouse was at? But anyway, in Wisconsin, Kenosha. I'm here in Kenosha in a mostly peaceful protest. You hear gunfire as he's saying that, and you see cars on fire behind him, and he actually has all that. How stupid do they think people are?
Yeah, but you can't. Again, like I look at that, and they're a small minority at those protests. I mean, you're not going to criminalize everybody that goes. People are there for a variety of different reasons. And I mean, we're here in Australia, so I don't like to get too much into American politics. I don't think I understand it enough. But yeah, that's exactly what's going on. It's like, are you going to criminalize everybody that's there at those protests? Again, they're there for a variety of different reasons, just because of these extremists. It's the exact same thing. It's like, yeah, there's so many people there. It's a massive crowd. Same deal with our protests. There's going to be idiots that you don't agree with, but you can't lump everybody in the same group just because there's a small minority of idiots.
It's amazing the tolerance like the media has for protests like Black Lives Matter when it's left-leaning, but for things that are right-leaning like Kyle Rittenhouse, it's just attacked, you know? There's no tolerance at all.
Well, the irony with Kyle Rittenhouse is it's not even right-leaning. The Second Amendment is centrist. It's in our Constitution, the right to keep and bear arms. And his actions, as the court case determined, were actually in self-defense. And it was misreported, misportrayed in the press because they're dishonest. And so the whole thing was blown out of proportion. And anybody that supported Kyle Rittenhouse was a Trump MAGA supporter, which isn't true. Just like with the people who are against jabs, guys, it's all Trump MAGA supporters. No, I know people who are dyed-in-the-wool leftists who don't want the jab. And I know people in the Senate who don't want the jab.
Some of the most notable people there were hippies. I mean, they were walking around with no shoes. I mean, that's just a parliament I was seeing. I mean, it's like you got people from all ends of the political spectrum. It's not about that. But yeah, for whatever reason, and I said it before, I mean, I don't know, I'm kind of somewhere in the center, I guess, but if you're slightly right-leaning, I mean, there's extremes on both ends.
That's right.
But for whatever reason, they're criminalizing people that lean slightly to the right. It's like, why? There's just this misunderstanding about what that means. It's like as soon as they think right, they think Nazis. And that's so wrong because it's just not the case.
I think it's like acid and alkaline, like if the people that studied chemistry, you know, like they equal each other out. Like there's bad on both sides, right?
Exactly.
Like left and right, you want to have a balance, just like, you know, I'm that spiritual guy, so yin and yang, right? It's like if you lie right in the center, it's like I support stuff that are like, you know, left leaning, I don't know. I'm not saying I'm neutral. I'm not saying I'm neutral either. I'm probably more right leaning, but I love like the socialist things like free healthcare in Australia is great because, you know, I know that in America apparently, you know, if you're stabbed and you can't afford it, then unfortunately you just have to die, right?
You're being facetious.
I could be wrong.
Right? You're being facetious, right?
No, I'm just sort of quoting what.
No. Well, the problem is that at every state, the law is people must be treated in emergency room. There's no such thing. That's propaganda. See, that's the first lie. Even before.
Okay, propaganda. That's my ignorance.
Yeah,
I'm really sorry.
That's why I don't want to comment too much on American politics because we get so much misinformation here.
Oh, it is.
It's
absolutely misinformation. The story.
Okay, that's great. I'm sorry.
No offense.
That's coming from ignorance, honestly.
I wasn't sure if you're being sarcastic. That's why I asked. But no, it's even here in America, people think that. But every state, it's a law that if someone shows up in the emergency room, they got to be treated. Now, some hospitals, particularly some for profit, will try to fob off patients who aren't, aren't stabbed or shot or something like that, or just sit in the waiting room. But it is the law; they must be treated, and it costs us a great deal. It's there's distortions across the board. You know, for instance, Americans complained about the cost of pharmaceuticals here with good reason. Pharmaceuticals are very expensive in a lot of cases. But what they lose sight of is the fact that we subsidize the entire world. Most pharmaceutical firms, there's a few in France and Switzerland and the UK, AstraZeneca and Roche and a few others, but most pharmaceutical companies are in America. The ones that develop these drugs for cancer, for, getting an erection, Viagra, and for all these other things, they're in America. So we subsidize the tens of billions of dollars of research, these companies here, and we develop it and we go through years and years of trials, and most drugs never pan out. So the companies lose the entire investment. It's only occasionally they get lucky, like they're trying to build, make a heart medicine like Viagra, and it turns out it has a side effect It gives people stiffies. And so that becomes a multi-billion-dollar business by accident. So that's all done here. And the Canadians pay nothing for it because the government sets a price. And they're like, oh, well, the Canadians have a better healthcare system. No, they don't. The Brits have a better healthcare system. No, I know people that have nearly died waiting a year and a half for an operation that's a routine operation they couldn't get because there's not enough healthcare workers. America has, hands down, the best healthcare on the planet if you can afford it. If you're a cash customer and you got a platinum insurance program, you can go in and get it, and you see your physician regularly. But there's a lot of propaganda out there, so I didn't mean to go on a rant there. But what I did want to say real quick, Brad, is that how dare you introduce science in this conversation? Alkaline and acid? I mean, stop with the science. The science is settled. You destroyed the world. Sorry, I'm channeling my Greta Thunberg there. Sorry.
That was amazing.
Really good. Thank you. No, people love
You're
it.
there, the Oscar.
No, people love that. No, she's anyway. No, it's I have a little fun with that, but no, it's there's lots of propaganda about the world. The problem, guys, from my perspective, having spent a couple more days on the planet than you all, from my perspective, is that critical thinking seems to have disappeared in mass around the world.
That's right.
When people tell you something. Now, you shouldn't just question anything just to question it, but when people tell you something and you think about it and it doesn't make sense, you shouldn't just buy it. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. You should ask a question. For instance, I've been trying to report on mortality and population increase and decrease, and I do this all the time, but data for 2020 is almost completely missing around the world. Normally, the World Health Organization, the International Monetary Fund, the U.S. government, the South African government, they all have this data. But that data hasn't been readily available to the public for the last year. Why is that? Now, we can blame it on they're understaffed or whatever, but it doesn't work the whole world over. There's something odd going on here because data is not being released that's normally available to the public. And people aren't questioning that. Well, how come we can't know how many people died from tuberculosis in South Africa in 2020? We know how many died in 2018. We know how many died in 2019. And in early 2020, we already knew that figure. Here it is almost 2022. We've yet to see the figures released for how many died from tuberculosis in South Africa, which, by the way, was more than the number who died from the Rona in 2020. Tuberculosis, highly infectious, and we didn't shut the world down for that. It's a crazy world, guys, but keep up your effort there. You listen. Maybe you realize this, maybe you don't, but as more people hear those two things, one, Rise, which is brilliant. All credit to both you guys. Brilliant job on that. And that performance in Melbourne, which the world doesn't know because the mainstream media covered it up. They've not covered it. As more people discover what you've done on social media platforms and what you're doing, it's really, honestly, look, I've got a Korean, Dutch, Canadian in the chat tonight who I've never seen before. And obviously, she's enjoying what you guys told me. She says, we can't assume who noticed and who is scared to talk about it to be ostracized. Anyway, but the point is that people around the world hear about it. You're really inspiring a lot of people. And listen, I'm not ashamed to admit that when I saw that video for the first time of you guys performing the Seeker song, I was welling up, man. I was sitting here. I mean, I was choking up. It was awesome. It was really incredible. And for that, I'm very grateful you guys did it. No, you're very welcome. So keep up the good work. And all right, we'll see you back on the Christmas program. I'll send you the details so you guys can pop on. And now, I don't expect my artists to perform for the Christmas program. Some of them like to do a cappella or sing something. I don't ask anybody to do it. I'm always terrified of copyright strikes. So, because, cover songs, you're not supposed to get that, but still it happens. But I don't ask the artists. But if you guys come on, and you want to do that, that's your prerogative. That's fine. But on that program, I'll be reading letters. If you got any little siblings or nieces or nephews or something like that like to write to Santa, we're going to be reading letters to Santa in English, Afrikaans, French, and German. I have Santa's helper who's based in Namibia. She'll be reading in Afrikaans letters. I'll be reading the ones in French, German, English because I speak those languages, and then telling folks what the kids are asking about. But anyway, so we'll be reading letters to Santa. I dress as Santa, and the beard, it works out pretty well. So as a barber, you probably appreciate that, Paul.
Definitely.
Anyway, guys, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. Nice comments here in the chat. People say you guys are really inspiring. They are, Levin. I remember the first time we played both those songs. You were really moved by it, as was I. Anyway, gents, Paul, hey, thanks a lot. I hope you feel better from the Rona. And
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And anyway, thanks, guys. I don't know what else to say other than say thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us, Chris. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure. If I could get you guys to stay on for about 3 or 4 minutes, I'll just put you in the waiting room so we can chat briefly afterwards. I'm going to close the program out. I'll put you in the waiting room. So hang on. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Bradely Marshall and Paul Kaspar. That's the guy that George Michael looks a lot like.
I'll have to
and what do I look like?
You got your own thing going on, but no, I'll have to get on and do Last Christmas.
There you go. That'd be awesome. Now, well, that's a good question, Brad. The whole time I've been trying to pick someone that resembles you, and I'm I'm struggling with that. I mean, you're a good-looking oak, but I'm trying to figure out who, so we get the right celebrity that looks like you. Anyway, all right, guys. I'll put you in the waiting room, and I'll close out the stream, and I'll be right back with you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, awesome.
Okay, so. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Bradely Marshall and Paul Kaspar there in Melbourne, Australia. These are the guys that Paul wrote the lyrics, and then Brad worked together to make this piece work, and they came up with the song Rise, which is unbelievable. It's an anthem for New Age. I'm going to play that in just a moment. You're going to hear it here live on the channel, and that'll be with their song, the original version, with the photographs of these consistent rallies in Melbourne, recent rallies, including police behavior and images of the city of Melbourne. You're going to see that, and then we'll close out the stream, and then I'm going to chat with them very quickly. And so they've agreed to come on the Christmas program, so we've got more artists confirmed for the Christmas program. Thanks for those who tune in. This is a very odd hour for my audience. I only occasionally do streams at this time, and usually it's a little bit later than this because I have my colleague in New Zealand, and then I have to get up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to do these live streams, but it's a few hours later in South Africa. But this is a really early stream in South Africa, so a lot of people watch this after the fact. Thank you to the lovely Dutch/Korean young lady who came in here. Thank you. I hope you're a subscriber to the channel. I really appreciate you tuning in. For everyone else, if you're not a subscriber to Chris Wyatt Africa, take a moment and smash the button right down there. Become a subscriber and support independent journalism. Not even asking you to super chat or to be a paying member. That's your prerogative if you want to do that or not. It's about getting the word out and spreading the word. I cover Africa and the globe with the focus initially on Africa and then the world. So tune in here. You get my decades of experience. I spent 36 and a half years in the military. I retired as a full colonel, lived overseas, 23 of those 36 years. I worked in the National Security Agency, Defense Intelligence Agency, the Pentagon, the U.S. Africa Command, the U.S. European Command, 8 tours in Africa, 3 tours in Germany, 1 tour in Italy, combat, counterterrorism experience. I'm a counterintelligence agent. I've worked all over the world, taught democracy and respect for the rule of law for militaries, built schools and clinics, ran HIV, Ebola programs, tuberculosis, malaria activities, built schools, clinics, ran naval programs, air programs, peacekeeping, you name it. I'm a published author in academic circles and in popular press. I'm a rugby journalist. So I've done all kinds of stuff, and you get all that experience here for absolutely nothing. It's free. Just become a subscriber, support the channel, and tune in and watch us when you can. We appreciate it. And with that, folks, we're going to take it out here with Rise. I started to say the Rise. With Rise. This is Paul Kaspar and Bradely Marshall, Rise. Enjoy this, and I'll catch you later today for the normal stream, Indaba Africa News of the Day on Chris Wyatt Africa. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for stopping in.
We watch the world through mired eyes, fixed on the altars of hypocrisy. The blue church serves its holy wine, the poison of this new theocracy. We've stood by and watched the free world die, and not this time we'll rise. We will rise, set the world on fire. Some souls are not for hire. No, you won't take me. We will rise like David to Goliath, to scream freedom or die. No, you won't take me alive. We will rise. We watch you hide behind your lies. As overlord, you preached equality. No, I can't stand it. Oh, your false commandments. I won't worship idols of autocracy. We stood by and let you bleed us dry. compromise this time. We will rise, to set the world on fire. Some souls are not for hire. No, you won't take me. We will rise, like David to Goliath, to scream freedom or die. No, you won't take me alive. No, you're kind. You're like Goliath to David. Our stones will become your demise. And if I die, I'll die with pride. We will rise to set the world on fire. Some souls are not for hire. No, you won't take me. We will rise, like David to Goliath.